part of a petition written during the Eskişehir trial 15 years ago and sent to the cabinet. Note: a petition was sent to the cabinet 15 years ago concerning the same matter. Now, since it has again arisen, I am obliged to send it again to the departments of government concerned. You who bind and loose. I have suffered an injustice the like of which has rarely been seen in the world. To remain silent before such an injustice is disrespect for right. I am compelled, therefore, to divulge a most important fact. Demonstrate the fault I have committed so that the law demands either my execution or 101 years imprisonment, or prove that I am completely mad, or else give complete freedom to myself, my treatises, and my friends, and collect our losses from those who caused them. Yes, every government has a law and a principle according to which penalties are given. If there is nothing in the laws of the government of the Republic to necessitate the heaviest penalty for myself and my friends, we should be given our complete freedom, as well as recompense and appreciation and an apology. For if my important service of the Qur'an, which is clear and open, is against the government, I should receive not a year's sentence in this way, and a number of my friends, 6 months each, I should be given the death sentence or 101 years imprisonment, and those earnestly attached to me, and my work should be given the heaviest penalties. But if our service is not against the government, we should receive not penalties, charges, and imprisonment, but appreciation and recompense. For it is service the nature of which may be understood through its 120 treatises, and its challenging the great philosophers of Europe and overthrowing their principles. Certainly, such effective service will either produce ghastly results inside the country, or it will yield most advantageous, elevated, and scholarly fruits. In which case, I cannot be given a year's sentence for playing a childish prank of hoodwinking and deceiving public opinion and concealing the intrigues of tyrants and their lies about us. Those like me either receive capital punishment, proudly climbing the gallows, or they remain free in the position of which they are worthy. Yes, a clever thief can steal diamonds worth thousands, so he would not sentence himself to the same penalty for stealing a fragment of glass worth virtually nothing. No thief would do that, indeed, no conscious creature. Such a thief is cunning, not utterly stupid in that way. Sirs, according to your delusions, I am like that thief. Rather than living in seclusion in a poor village in one of the districts of Sparta for 9 years and putting in danger myself and my treatises, which are the aim of my life, by turning against the government the ideas of 5 to 10 ingenious unfortunates who have been given very light sentences along with me, I could have held a high position in either Ankara or Istanbul like formerly, and manipulated thousands of people towards the aim I was following. Then I would not have been convicted so abjectly, but would have been involved in the world with the pride and dignity befitting my way and duty. I do not say this out of pride or to boast, but ashamedly to point out the errors of those who, recalling some of my old self-advertisement and hypocrisy, want to abase me so that the position I hold lacks all importance and cannot be profited from. So I say to them, as someone who, as confirmed by his old defense, which was published under the name of the testimony of 2 schools of misfortune, reduced to obedience with a speech 8 rebelling regiments during the 31st of March incident, and as was reported in the newspapers of the time, with an article called The 6 Steps, performed the important service of turning the ideas of the Istanbul ulama against the British and in favor of the national movement, and delivered an address to thousands in Hagia Sophia, making them listen to him, and was greeted with tumultuous applause by the assembly and deputies in Ankara, and had 163 deputies assign 150,000 liras for his religious school and university, and without calling responded completely firmly to the angry president in the speaker's office and invited him to perform the obligatory prayers. And while in the Darul Hikmet al-Islamiyya was unanimously considered worthy by the Union and Progress governments of the duty of effectively inviting the philosophers of Europe to accept Islamic wisdom and science of miraculousness, Isharat al-Ijaz, the work he wrote on the front during the war and has now been seized, appeared so valuable to Enver Pasha, who was commander-in-chief at the time, that with respect shown by no one else and the idea of sharing in the goods and glory of that memento of the war, which was racing to the future, he contributed the paper to have the work printed so that the exploits of its author during the war would be remembered. Such a man would not descend to discharging the dignity of his learning, the sacredness of his service, and his thousands of valuable friends by tainting himself with a petty crime like a horse thief, abductor of girls, or pickpocket, so that you could sentence him to a year's imprisonment and treat him like a stealer of goats or sheep. He would prefer execution to suffering under the arbitrary persecution of a malicious detective or common policeman the year's sentence now given him together with being held under supervision for a year after having been tormented for 10 years without reason with oppressive surveillance, although he could not endure to be dominated by the Sultan. If such a man had been involved in the world, and if he had harbored such a wish, and if his sacred service had permitted, he would have interfered in it to an extent 10 times greater than the Menemen affair and Sheikh Said revolt. The booming sound of a cannon heard by all the world would not have subsided to the buzz of a fly. Yes, I make the following point for the attention of the government of the Republic. This situation has been brought about through the intrigues, machinations, and propaganda of the coward organization which drove me to this misfortune. The evidence that widespread propaganda and terror and a conspiracy have been orchestrated against us in a way never before seen in any event is this, that although I have 100,000 friends, not one of them has been able to write me any letter for 6 months or to send any greetings, and the fact that, due to the informing of plotters who are trying to deceive the government, interrogations and searches have been continually carried out from the eastern provinces to those in the west. The plan these intriguers hatched was evidently to organize an incident that would be the cause of thousands like me receiving the heaviest penalties. However, the result was a penalty that recalled an incident of petty pilfering perpetrated by the communist person. Of 115 people, 15 innocent men were given sentences of 5 or 6 months. Would any rational creature in the world prick the tail of a fierce lion or terrible dragon with his brilliantly sharp diamond sword and make it turn on him? If his intention was self-defense or combat, he would use his sword somewhere else. With your deluded view, you conceive of me as such a man, for that is the way you have charged me and sentenced me. If I act in a manner so contrary to consciousness and reason, this great country should not be terrorized and public opinion turned against me. With propaganda, I should be sent to a lunatic asylum like a common madman. But if I am someone of the importance you afford me, my keen sword would not be pointed at the tails of the lion or the dragon to make them attack him. He would rather defend himself as far as he could. Just as I have voluntarily chosen seclusion these last 10 years, and tolerating difficulties beyond human endurance, have interfered in no way whatsoever in matters of government, nor have I wanted to interfere, because my sacred duty prohibits me. O you who bind and loose, is it at all possible that in the 120 treatises of a person who, as was written in the newspapers 25 years ago, with one newspaper article caused 30,000 people to accept his ideas and drew the attention of the huge operation army on himself and replied with 6 words to the questions of the chief cleric of the English, who wanted 600, and gave a speech after the Constitutional Revolution as though he were a leading diplomat, would only 15 words related to politics and the world be found in the 120 treatises of such a man? Is it at all reasonable to accept that this man follows politics and his aim is this world, and he is troubling the government? If his mind was set on meddling in politics and the government, such a person would have made it clear in a single of his treatises and indicated it in 1,000 places. If his purpose had been criticism with political intent, would he not have found anything to criticize other than 1 or 2 rules about the wedding of women and inheritance, which have long been in force? Yes, the politically minded opponent of a ruling regime which had enacted far-reaching reforms would have found not those 1 or 2 matters to object to but thousands. As though the reforms of the government of the Republic consisted only of 1 or 2 minor matters. Although I had no intention to criticize it whatsoever because of 1 or 2 words in 1 or 2 of my books, which I had written long previously, it was said, he is attacking the ruling regime and its reforms. So I ask, should the whole country be busied with a scholarly matter which demands not the smallest penalty in a way to cause anxiety? Thus, myself and 5 to 10 of my friends being given the most minor, trivial sentences, and the whole country being intimidated by powerful propaganda against us and being made to hate us, and Şükrü Kaya, the interior minister, being called to Sparta with a significant force of soldiers in order to perform a task a single private soldier could perform, that is, to arrest me and Ismet, the head of the cabinet, going to the eastern provinces in that connection, and for 2 months in prison by being prohibited from speaking with anyone and no one asking after me or sending me greetings while alone in this exile. All this show that it is a meaningless, pointless, illegal situation like a tree as huge as a mountain producing a fruit the size of a pea. Seeing that government means to govern with wisdom, it is not something any government would be involved in, especially a legal government like the government of the Republic, which adheres more closely to the law than any other. I want my rights within the bonds of the law. I accuse of being criminals those who act against the law in the name of the law. The laws of the governments of the Republic certainly reject the arbitrary acts of such criminals. I am hopeful that my rights will be restored to me. Said Nursi. An example of the Risale-i Nur's veracity. Note: as the fair-minded and enlightened who read the following treatise, which was written 19 years ago, will clearly understand, the Risale-i Nur, with all its 130 parts, is concerned only with belief and the hereafter, and was written in that spirit, completely free of all political and worldly motives. Note: the 16th letter was written several years previously to Eskişehir and Denizli courts, yet it's rebuffing all the points of objection as though it had seen the 3 courts demonstrates clearly that it was the object of divine bestowal and grace. This clear and definite fact was corroborated by the lengthy investigations and minute studies carried out by the courts of Eskişehir, Sparta, Denizli, and Afyon. In this connection, we are requesting your concern and assistance in having all our books returned to us, which for more than 20 months have been held by Afyon court, and not the smallest point of which was shown by the appeal courts as constituting an offense, and which have saved the belief of thousands of people and have been praised and applauded by their readers and scholars and the Islamic world. The greater part of the books held by Afyon court were collected by the first of our companions to be released, saying, "We gave these books of ours to Ustad, their owner, they should be handed over to him. They referred them to me. In particular, they left in the court the gilded Qur'an, which was written showing the miraculous coincidences of letters, which was among the confiscated books. Before everything, we await the swift return to us of those books and our Qur'an, which were previously returned to us by Denizli and Ankara courts. Said Nursi.